All right, everyone. I will call this meeting to order. Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of April 26th, 2023. Staff, may we have a roll call when you're settled?
Sorry, I was answering the press. Yes, Planning Commissioner Woodward? Here. Planning Commissioner Tsai?
Here.
Vice Chair Amir?
Here.
And Chair Williams?
Here.
And Planning Commissioner DeFever is absent tonight.
Thank you. Right before we turn to tonight's noticed agenda items, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to any matter that is not on the agenda? And I don't know if people have the ability in this now that we're back here in person, do people have the ability to call in?
There is no Zoom capability. We do not have both.
Didn't think so.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, seeing as there are no one wishes to speak, I'll turn to the commission and staff, the staff briefing for the evening. I'm sure there are a few updates.
Yes, good evening, Planning Commissioner and public. I'd like to announce that on April 29th, this Saturday, we're going to have our open house for the general plan. I want to make sure that people understood that this is just kind of a charrette, an open house with different stations. The consultants will be here as well as staff. There will be no decisions made at this meeting, but it'll be solely for information. So from 10 o'clock to 12, the council chambers will be transformed, and we will all be here to help people understand what's going on. And then on May 10th, we will be bringing the general plan and housing element to the Planning Commission for consideration for a recommendation to Town Council. And then after that, on May 22nd, which is a Monday night, a little bit different, we'll have a special meeting of the Town Council for with your recommendation and action to hopefully certify the EIR and adopt the general plan. So those are our next steps. I think our biggest piece of what we've been working on for the last couple of years. So it should be a fun meeting on the 10th. That's all I had. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have two questions. One is I missed the open house that's this Sunday?
Saturday. On
okay.
April 29th.
Great.
From 10 to 12.
Thank you. And then on the mini cow issue that was going to be on the last, I believe the March 22nd meeting agenda. What is the status of that?
So what we've done with that, because we have the general plan and housing element, we didn't want to put it on the same agenda, realizing how long of a night it was going to be. So it was supposed to go on May 10th. It will go on the following meeting, which, what is that, the 23rd or 4th? 23rd of May? Am I right about that?
It's
24th.
24th, sorry. Thank you. The 24th of May is when it will be scheduled for.
Okay, thank you. That's
Sure.
helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's time now to review the minutes of March 8th. Is there any amendments or changes to those minutes? I believe Commissioner Woodward, you were absent that night.
I have none.
Chair, I have one recommendation for a change. I was not at the meeting because I was recused and will continue to be, but there is a small error on page 6, line 13. It says 163 Mira, Avenida Miraflores, so it's just a deletion of Mira there.
That's an easy change. Thank you.
I have no change.
There's one section, I may have one minor revision. Otherwise, I thought the minutes looked great. Let me just take a quick peek here. Yeah, so I think just on page 10, line 36, just one clarification, the last sentence, revise that to read, staff might return and say it does not make sense to include specific recommendations in the resolution, which may make the situation more confusing or making the instructions more confusing. Thank you.
Fine, thank you.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd?
March 8th.
20
March 8th.
8th.
March 8th, sorry, with the changes suggested.
The question is, so we only have two members.
Chair could second the motion, no?
Yes, but then we only have, I guess, if we have two, it's not really the majority.
Well,
But one is recused.
Town council, or,
Could we ask the, what?
Yes, this is,
Yes, I think that would be a problem because we don't have a majority of the quorum for the minutes. No, because Eric was not here and Jeff wasn't present because he had to recuse, so I only have Erica and Daniel. So we have 2 out of 3. 2 out of 5.
I'm going to abstain from the.
Is that still?
I believe so, that
Okay.
the 2
All
out of
right.
3 will be okay.
Okay.
okay. So I will second the motion, and all in favor. Oh, any abstentions?
I abstain.
I will be abstaining.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So you have 2 abstentions and 2
Abstentions,
ayes.
2 in
Thank you.
favor. So that should be sufficient to get those minutes approved. All right, we next have an action item. And this is a consideration of changing the Planning Commission's regular meeting time.
So, weird with this mic, I don't get a light, so I never know which
Yeah.
way it is, but now I can hear myself. So, when COVID came about, we went through, we changed the time, and we had more virtual meetings. And so as you see now, every single meeting says special meeting because it wasn't actually what was adopted in the municipal code for your meeting time. And so as we've done with the design review and we did with the council, we need to officially bring forward to you a resolution permanently changing the planning commission's time to 6:30 unless there's another time in which the commission wishes us to consider. And that, and I do apologize, it wasn't in your packet, I don't believe, but I just gave you the resolution, and which denotes it as 6:30, and it should become effective as of, I would put this change into the record tonight, which is April 26th. As you saw, we had this for March 22nd.
Right.
So it would be April 26th within the resolution, and I'm open to any discussion,
And I
of course,
think there's-
or questions.
Yeah, and it looks like there's one other typo in the draft resolution at the top, because, thank you for reminding us that we originally used to meet at 7:30, and we changed it to 6:30.
That's correct.
And so I
Oh, I
think in
see.
that first paragraph,
It
we'll
should
just
say
revise that to 6:30.
Yes.
And then did we want to deliberate?
Except that,
Excuse me?
say 7 or 7:30, whenever the time was, right?
Well, the plan changed its,
It's changed its regular time
me?
to 6:30.
I don't know if this
by that
is
too, but if
working.
you read the full sentence.
Dina?
Yes.
Sorry, can I see you printed out
Oh,
and
yes, I'm
I
sorry.
don't, so is it a resolution or a staff report?
It is a resolution.
Okay.
I provided the staff
How many
report
times
as well.
actually
Is there a staff report? Can I,
There was.
oh, okay. Because the staff report
Maybe-
is
Well,
not,
it's just,
sorry, because the staff report is not linked on the agenda online.
that's correct.
So there needs to be a way to make it available to the public before voting on this. And
She
the
didn't
staff
put it in the
report says
packet.
just to provide direction, not that there's a resolution being passed. So we might need to continue this item.
Okay.
So maybe what we can do is exactly that, is ask staff to prepare a resolution incorporating some of the changes to the draft that you circulated, and then we can push it off to the next meeting. But one question I have, it's just clarification, because the pandemic has become a blur in my mind. When we had our meetings during the pandemic at 7:30, if that was the time, was that the regular time, or was that itself a changed time?
So what I understood, because I came right at the beginning of the pandemic was that you used to meet, I think, at 7 or 7:30.
7:30, so we always
And
met
then
at
as
7:30.
part of the pandemic, because of the virtual, we were allowed to kind of do the change, and we changed it to 6:30, and that was actually done by a resolution. And now, in order to make it sort of permanent, we have to change that in
Understood.
this manner.
Okay, thank you.
So it sounds like you may be entertaining or considering whether or not a resolution is appropriate, or what's the appropriate, how do we change that time officially. If there is a resolution to address a comment that Commissioner Tsai raised, you might want to change it. You might want to clarify that we change the regular meeting time from 7:30 to 6:30. Just get all the facts in there. If that's the decision, if you ultimately decide to do a resolution at all.
No, we did do a resolution for the other boards, so it is,
Okay.
it is sort of the vehicle
Okay.
that we do that.
So do you need a motion to continue this?
I need
to
a
the
motion to
next-
continue it, but if you would, if there are any other comments that we should include, I would like them now, so I can bring this back to you.
Yeah, that's important. Let me just take, since we just got this, we'll take a quick minute to review it. Okay, well, this looks good to me with the changes that we've discussed. Sounds like no one else has chimed in. So,
And I will make such a motion, Madam Chair.
is there a second?
I'll second.
And we just want to be clear, the motion is for the city to consider adopting a resolution to change the time
At the
next meeting.
To continue,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Next possible date. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And we will turn now to our public hearing agenda items. And I would actually like to propose that we reverse the order of the noticed agenda items so that we start with the ADU item and conclude with the 165 Avenida Miraflores.
So I believe you're going to have to make a motion to change the
Yes,
agenda.
and I was going to
Thank you.
make that motion to reverse the order of the two hearing agenda items.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so let's turn to.
So I just want to, I see some people in the audience that are here for public hearing number.
Yes,
We changed this because we have one of our commission members needs to be recused. So rather than have him be recused and come back, this is a more efficient way in which to do this.
yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's turn now to the ADU amendment and would love to hear a staff report.
Perfect. So I know we've been before us on this ADU a number of times. And in February of 2022, the council did adopt an ordinance for the ADU after it had come before you a number of times. And then there were a number of bills that went forward through the California legislation to approve some changes. And in September of 2022, there was an Assembly Bill 2221 and Senate Bill 897 that were signed into law. And AB 2221 currently has no effect because it's been amended into the same statute that SB 897 is. So what we're looking at tonight is to look at the changes that SB 897 requires us to do. It actually is a comment that we got from HCD in our recent comment letter on the housing element. And I outlined in the staff report what those changes are. One of them has to do with height, so a height of 16 feet for a detached dwelling unit on a lot with an existing or proposed single-family dwelling unit. And then it goes on to say a height of 18 feet for a detached accessory unit on a lot with an existing or proposed single-family or multifamily unit that is within 1/2 mile walking distance of a major transit stop or a high-quality transit corridor. And those are definitely terms that we have outlined in the Public Resources Code. And then a local agency shall allow an additional 2 feet in height to accommodate a roof pitch on the accessory structure that is aligned with the roof pitch of the primary structure, so that there's some design kind of cohesion. And then a height of 18 feet for a detached accessory dwelling unit on a lot with an existing or proposed multifamily or multi-story dwelling unit. And finally, a height of 25 feet or the height limitation in a local zoning ordinance that applies to the primary dwelling unit. We kind of dealt with that a little bit when we looked at attachments to existing units. Whichever is lower for an accessory dwelling unit that is attached to a primary dwelling unit. This clause does not require a local agent to allow any accessory dwelling units to be greater than 2 stories. And then the front setback really just basically is stating that we yield it or we don't require it. We did have a lot of discussion with respect to planned developments and front yard setbacks, but this is now precluding us from doing that. And then restrictions on denials. So if we deny an ADU, we need to put a full set of comments together that are showing those specific items and provide a thorough review and comments as well as remedies on how you might be able to actually move forward. There's a new configuration that's required for the JADUs, that JADUs must be constructed within walls of a proposed or existing single-family dwelling. And we've determined this, that it's to include non-livable space within the primary dwelling, including garages. So SB 897 clarifies that interpretation was correct. This change is not really substantive to what we're doing currently. And in addition, the law also clarifies that where a JADU shares a bathroom with the primary residence, the JADU must have an interior entry into the living area, independent of the exterior entrances. In other words, if you do not, in a JADU, there are instances where you're sharing a bathroom. And so there has to be an interior access for that, as well as an exterior access. We also had to add some various definitions for objective design standards, as well as some, as you see in your red line copy, some other additional definitions. And then, so that's sort of the staff report, but I did want to indicate to you there is a typo, which is quite significant, in table, let me get there, table 1 and table 2, where it says more than 1 bedroom, it should say 1,000 square feet and not 1,200. I think I might have been dreaming. So that's my staff report, and I'm available for any questions. And what we're looking for you tonight is to adopt this resolution to approve the ordinance changes to section 1652.100 of the municipal code.
Dina, may I ask you a question about one of the last comments you made about tables 1 and 2? So I'm looking at Exhibit 1.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about as far as the typo is
Yes.
concerned?
So in Exhibit 1, let me get to the right page.
So Exhibit 1, Table 1's on...
It's on page 4.
Page 4, okay. Page 4, right.
Right, more than 1 bedroom should say the total area of floor space shall not exceed 1,000 as opposed to 1,200. We went through this a lot, and as far as the detached ADU, the same thing.
Okay, so you're, okay, I think I understand. So under paragraph 5, table 2, which is on page 4,
Yes,
where it says ADU type more than 1 bedroom, what's listed is 1,200 square feet, and you're saying that's a typo?
that's correct. So
That
it should
what-
say 1,000.
Okay, I see. 'Cause-
And both in the table above, table 1, should say the same thing, more than 1 bedroom.
The only reason I'm confused is because, is this a typo because it was a typo on what we originally
That's correct.
did?
That's correct.
Okay.
I don't know how we transposed it, or I transposed it. I shouldn't say we. There was no we in this. I can't blame anybody but me.
While we're speaking on typos, and I know this is a public hearing item, so I need to open it up for public comment, but I do just have a question
Okay.
Point of clarification, I think it's a typo. Under the objective design standards definition, it looks like maybe there's just some extra verbiage there, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling around because I was looking at the table. So, and I've lost the page now where that shows up. Objective.
I think it's on page 2, if you're
Thank
talking about the
you.
definition.
Yeah, Exhibit 1, page 2. And I'm looking at the staff memo, and I think that language is good. I think you mean to say there that objective design standards means standards that involve no personal or subjective judgment, as opposed to, there's some extra words, I think, in there. Currently, it
The
reads
standard-
objective design standards, objective
Oh,
standards.
yes. Involves, okay.
So your staff memorandum really is very clear there.
Uh-huh.
And I think that language would work. I think judgment may be misspelled, but maybe that's right out of the state. Yeah, I don't know where that, if that's a typo or if that's just. if that's
Usually that
just-
catches it, but let me look.
Well, can I ask another question about that? Is the term used in the document, is it objective design standard or objective design standards, singular or plural?
I believe we use standards with an S.
Okay, because if it is standards plural with an S.
Am I
then it-
right? Am I right? Let me see. Development standards.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay, then it should probably say there, objective design standards
Involve.
means
Oh,
standards involving no personal blah, blah, blah.
okay.
That's just really a grammatical
And
thing,
that's
is really
what I
all
had.
it is, yep.
That's what I'd recommended as well.
Okay, no problem.
And then there may also be a typo in the resolution. It also refers to March 22nd, which I think
Yes.
is when we originally intended to look at this. Before I open this up for the public hearing, are there any other questions or comments for staff on the staff report? Okay, it doesn't seem, there don't seem to be, so I'll open up the public, this for public comment. If there is anyone who wishes to speak to this, it looks like there's not. So I'll close the public hearing and bring this back to the commission for deliberation.
I do have one, it's really a question. Dina, do you have any additional background as to what the basis was for the legislation that requires these changes now? What precipitated?
So it's hard, I don't know exactly, but I would imagine what it is to continue to facilitate and make it easier for people to come in. And as I think jurisdictions began to process these, some of these issues came up. And so I think this is an answer to them. And, some didn't have definitions, or, the heights were really always something people kind of wrestled with.
Which is why I find it, that's exactly why I asked the question, because one of the major changes was increasing the amount of height that is permissible. So I wasn't sure if there was maybe some.
I think because if you look at a single-story structure, sometimes there isn't enough to put 1,000 square feet in it. Some people want a little more volume, and it seemed to be, then also with the whole roof pitch to match, you needed to look at higher. So I think this was a fix. I don't know exactly all of the dialogue, but I believe it would be a fix to make this even more streamlined, to create more housing opportunities.
Okay.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the red lines appear pretty consistent with what the legislation otherwise requires, and based on the staff report, there is kind of nothing that appears to be subjective on our part in terms of what we're proposing to add into the legislation, so it all makes good sense to me.
Commissioner Woodward.
I have nothing further to add.
Commissioner,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think with the changes that we've provided here, I think we're okay to proceed.
okay. Terrific. I would agree with my fellow commissioners. I think this is, I very much appreciated the red lines. It made it much easier to go through and understand the changes and relate them back to.
It helped
Yeah.
me as well.
Yeah, it was very, very helpful. So I would agree that I think I looked them over carefully and I didn't, other than the suggested revisions, both by the staff and the commissioners. It looks good to me, and I think we've also, I know another thing before us, I think, is the exemption from CEQA. And so based on the staff memorandum, I would agree with that, that this is exempt from CEQA. So I think if there's someone who wants to make a motion, we do have, I've got the changes written down, I can make that motion, or,
Chair, since you have the changes, if you want to make that motion, perhaps that would be easiest for staff and being able
Yeah.
to
I want to
transcribe.
make sure I catch everything. Thank you.
yeah, and I think I got them all, so please chime in if there's anything in addition. But I think the motion to, I'll move to adopt the attached resolution recommending approval to the town council, various zoning text amendments with the following changes, changing the resolution so that it has the correct meeting date, tonight's date of April 26th. And then in the body of the, excuse me, let me pull this up. In Exhibit 1, page 2, yes, we will change A9 to read objective, quote-unquote, objective design standards, means standards involving no personal or subjective judgment by a public official. The remainder of that sentence will remain the same. Maybe double-check the spelling of judgment.
Absolutely.
On page 4 of Exhibit 1, under Table 2, we will change under more than one bedroom ADU type, under ADU floor area, just change 1,200 square feet to 1,000 square feet.
In both tables.
Table
In
1
both
and 2.
tables,
yeah.
thank you. Table 1 and 2
Thank you.
of Exhibit 1, page 4. I think that's captured all of the changes. So that is the motion.
And exempt from CEQA.
And exactly, the proposed amendments are exempt from CEQA under pursuant to section 15282, subsection H of the CEQA guidelines.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, you'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. I think Commissioner Tsai is still acting as chair.
Sorry, I thought you were inviting a motion. I'm sorry. I was only like making the oh, you made the motion, actually. Sorry.
All right.
Force of habit.
Exactly,
Sorry.
exactly. We're all, it's really interesting to be here in person. I think we're just adjusting to the new normal. All right, so we're going to move on to the second hearing item, and I know there is a recusal this evening. So.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you. I will be recusing from what is PH1, which is now the second public hearing item, because I am directly impacted by the matter. So I thank the commissioners who I saw tonight. It's nice seeing everybody, and I will see you all at the next meeting.
Terrific.
Go
right?
Warriors.
Moment to
Miriam, it's nice to meet you too. Thank you, everybody.
Good to meet you.
moment to leave the room, and then we'll get
Scurry
started.
out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Okay, all right. Okay, we can move on now to agenda item 2 on the request to amend the precise development plan. Let's start with the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioner. This project was last heard by the Planning Commission at public meeting on March 8th. It was then continued to a March 22nd meeting, and that meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum. In the last meeting on March 8th, after receiving public testimony and upon deliberation, the Planning Commission expressed general support of the proposed precise plan amendment to create a new secondary building envelope that would legalize the location of an as-built gazebo at its current location. The Commission's vote to continue the project and request staff to propose conditions that would specify what is allowed within the building envelope, the secondary building envelope. These draft conditions are listed in Exhibit 1 for the Commissions to consider tonight. If the Commissions found that the precise plan amendment can be approved tonight with the proposed conditions, the resolutions will be forwarded to Town Council as recommendations for their considerations. Otherwise, if the Commissions found that the proposed amendment cannot be approved tonight, you may direct staff to prepare appropriate resolutions of denial be returned for adoption at the next meeting.
All right. So I'm trying to, we had lovely iPads the last time we were here, and I was thinking that we'd have them again, so I did not print out.
Oh, yeah, I'm
we-
wondering why you don't have them there
Yeah, so,
either.
and I'm having trouble with the Wi-Fi, so I was actually trying to pull up the draft.
Do you,
Do you need like this
That would be
packet? Yeah, there should be one in the back.
Oh,
also.
thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Woodward. This is perfect. I didn't realize that all of the exhibits were printed out back there, so that's great.
they should be, yes.
Yeah, very good.
Do you want it up on the screen, or are you okay now that you have it?
Up on the screen, I think
Up
would
on
be
the
really good. Yeah, that'd be very helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christie.
Are there any questions for staff just about the staff report? Any comments before we? Is there an applicant presentation this evening on? Yes, okay. Well, we welcome, I think now is the time. There are no questions for staff, so feel free to begin your presentation. And well, you have 20 minutes. You certainly don't have to use the whole 20 minutes, but I will start timing.
Members of the commission, I'm Michael Heckman. I'm consulting with the owners proposing this secondary building envelope. Karen Shamir is here, so I'm representing her.
Please speak to the mic if possible. Is it on?
No, I don't think it's on.
Let me turn it on. Yeah, now it's on.
Oh, you have to hit it.
Much better.
All right. Well, I won't start over with everything, but I think you get the gist. We are proposing a secondary building envelope. I think you must have all the exhibits, but I will go through them briefly. I don't think Commissioner Woodward was here for the original presentation of the project, which are really just plans to allow the authorization and formalization of an existing gazebo. It's a structure that's been on the property for a long, long time. And the current owners decided that it would be more beneficial for them to have a structure with an enclosure rather than an open air gazebo, which would be kind of like a trellis type of structure. So I don't know if any of you made a site visit, but there are some photos which we can see in the presentation. Well, I will look at the plans briefly, and then we'll go back to the photos.
So you have to use the down button, the down arrow, is that on? All these technical things. Turn it
Oh,
on for
it's
you.
there. I think it's
And
on
then
now.
this moves it forward, unfortunately, the down one, which isn't intuitive, but it does. What?
Is it responding to that, or?
Don't worry, we can do it.
We're gonna do it manually?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you are.
I just moved it for you, Michael.
Well, I wanted to go back to the plans. There's a neighborhood plan. I think it was the first drawing. Yeah, this one, that's fine.
Okay.
So this kind of gives you a sense of what we considered as reference properties in this particular proposal. This subdivision was done with a number of other properties which are on Geldert Court, but that obviously is a much denser kind of scheme. But I believe the three properties that you see here are relevant to our discussion. And 165 Avenida Miraflores is the one that has the gazebo, and it is noted as property 6. It's right in the middle, the light color.
You don't have a pointer this evening,
Yeah,
do you?
there is. It's on,
Yeah.
no, you can,
Oh, well, I'll use the,
Yeah, that was, I know you
I
used
can
it
use
last
that.
time, and it was very helpful.
so I can't advance the slides.
Thank you.
no, I'll advance the slides. You use the light.
The pointer is working. Thank you,
All right,
that would be very
This will
helpful.
be an adventure. Okay, so I'd like to go back 3 slides where we actually consider the secondary building envelope.
This one?
One more, and then the additional one, yes, there. So you can see the red line here. That is the edge of the existing envelope between there and there for the main building. And our proposal is this element here. The gazebo, which is not represented there graphically, is basically right in here. Now, I did mention at one time that we've got 80 feet between the neighbor, that's at 163, and that's from their structure to the beginning of our proposed envelope. It's actually almost 110 feet from that building to where the gazebo is located. So that's a difference of quite a bit of a distance that I think you needed to be aware of. So we have fairly big properties in this neighborhood. This is clearly one of the biggest properties, this lot number 6, and it seems an appropriate adjustment that's acceptable considering the scale of other properties. It's notable that we can see between properties. I think the Shamirs look into number 163 to some extent, and then the neighbor at 167 looks into the Shamir property. So everyone kind of has some kind of visual reference that includes adjacent buildings. But I think just the notion that it can be seen is not really a valid objection. I think the thing that needs to be more of interest is an appropriate use, and can it be formalized without any significant issues. We have looked at the parameters suggested by the staff for this secondary envelope, and we believe that they're appropriate and acceptable. It's fairly restrictive enough to allow the gazebo to exist, but it doesn't allow it to grow. It doesn't allow us to build another structure. Anything that's included in this secondary envelope would be basically at or near grade. So very low scale type of elements in this envelope. We will, of course, if you approve our project and our recommendation here, then we would be heard by the design review board. But I wanted you to be clear about the fact that the gazebo will have finishes matching the main residence. It's not going to have this kind of eyesore of raw lumber and white frames that seems to be quite evident in all the photos. Let's see. So there is a photo now I'd like to go to, which is the first one after these slides. Right there, that's fine. So these were pictures taken some time ago, a few months ago, but it does show that it's possible to look from my client's property to the adjacent property and that's been the condition since both of them bought their properties. Okay, how about the next slide? This is a view from the gazebo to the adjacent property. You can see there's some dense foliage that's providing some separation visually between the two. Let's see the next slide.
There is no next slide. Let's go. I think that's the last slide in that part of the deck.
Okay, then let's go back. Oh, okay. Yeah, this will work fine. So these were pictures taken recently, actually, just a few days ago. So I think you get a better sense about how the trees are able to fill in. I think most of these are fruit trees on the neighbor's property at 163. And any kind of separation that might be worthwhile for privacy certainly is provided by the trees and would be augmented by normal window coverings, which is fairly standard in all these neighborhoods. So let's go to the...
Are those from that's from the gazebo?
It's from the gazebo, right. It's from the window that's on the southernmost side.
I have, if I may ask a question.
Sure.
So just since it's relevant to the photo.
Right.
No, I don't want to interrupt your flow. In the staff memorandum, the staff pointed us to principles under the municipal code for precise development plans. And I was looking through some of those. A lot of them seem to relate to be honest, to design review. I'm not sure what we can do with them, but I was looking through the more broadly at that section cited of the municipal code, section 16-52.060E. And there was a reference to protecting primary views, which I understand to mean views of homes, views of the bay, views of the the surrounding area,
right.
But also protecting view corridors. Do you have any sense, just from the work you've done on this property or in your preparation for tonight, as to what that is meant under the Tiburon Municipal Code vis-a-vis this particular precise plan?
You're wondering if the views from my client's properties are affected?
Well, I'm
because-
actually speaking more broadly to the precise development plan principles relating to all PDP precise development plans, and it's under the municipal code section that we were given. It's just not listed in the memorandum, but there is another principle, another relevant principle to any
Right.
kind of request like this is protection of primary views and view corridors, and I just didn't understand the distinction between those two.
Well, I couldn't
And
interpret it for you.
I understand.
I guess for this particular gazebo, I'm not sure that it's
So it's not
applicable.
specific to this, it would be
Oh,
specific
I see.
to the whole development.
Oh,
Because these principles are, we're
right,
looking at.
specific to the primary development plan as it sees. So I think in this instance, we would consider, so you have 163, 165, and 167. So I think if we look at 167 as to whether or not this gazebo has any impact to sight or view, we haven't heard that to be the case, and Christy can jump in if she's heard anything different. And so that would be kind of a view corridor.
Right.
And then with respect to a primary view, we're talking about waterways and
Yeah,
bridges
that
and,
one's-
yeah. So in this instance, I don't know that we really consider that in the same way, as much as some questions by the neighbor at 163 about privacy.
Okay, well, that
Does that
is
answer your question?
That provides further insight as to why you, in your consideration, you hadn't included it in the, you hadn't specifically called it out in the staff
Yes,
memo.
that's really the reasoning for
Okay.
it.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. I was just, it was a question, I was curious.
I could speak a little more to the view situation. I mean, obviously, my client's view is out in this direction. They have another view, which is toward the city. I did visit the neighbor at 163 last month and walked through the house and stepped out of the rooms at the rear of the house. So it seems clear to me that the views of that house are directed toward the city, to the south. The bedrooms are not really view-oriented per se. They each have a door to the backyard. But I don't think it's a view issue at all. And the doors to the garden are not enormous, and the trees provide an incredible amount of foliage separation and I think have given it the privacy that's necessary that might be needed for 163. Let's see, we have a couple of more photos. Cycling. Let's go back and see what we have.
There you go. I just went back from the north side.
Right. Yeah, this is another gazebo window view, which is just from a few days ago. And you can see the foliage starting to fill in. So I did want to show you, too, one thing. When I went there, I did take my own photos. I took a series that kind of created a panoramic, and I wasn't able to provide it in this slideshow. But I do have some prints that I could give you and planning staff just to take a look at.
Okay, very good.
Those will have to be part of the record as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These are a composite of pictures that I took on the day that I visited 163. So the reason that I married these photos all together in a pano is that it shows that there is a kind of wider view from the rear of the property. The view over to 165 is just a small element of it. And those trees in that part of the garden have been pruned recently, within the last couple of months. And now you can see after a very short period of time, from last year, about the same time, I think they'd also been pruned, but they filled in quite rapidly. So I don't think there's going to be a great visual connection between these two properties or between 163 and the gazebo, just with all the natural vegetation. And the large tree, which you see on the left there, has not been pruned at all, and I think there would be a great view out in that direction if it was. So I don't think it's really a view issue per se, but you can see what view elements might be available if they wanted to prune things a little bit differently.
Another question related to this point. I don't recall, I was out there, I visited the site and visited the neighbor's property before the most recent pruning. I do appreciate this photo.
Right.
Thank you for that. To the extent, if this goes forward, and ultimately it will go to design review for,
Sure.
we're not getting into that level of detail. We're looking at more broadly the kind of land use issue. I don't recall, so I'm asking you to remind me if there is space on the applicant's property for landscaping to further mitigate any privacy issues. To the extent.
Well, there is space, yeah. There's, I think a gazebo must be
I
at
remember
least
that there was quite a
30
lot of
feet.
space.
Yeah. In fact, I think the distance, yeah, I'm sure, the distance from the property line to the proposed secondary envelope is about 20 feet. And then to the gazebo is another 30 feet. So there is space for more vegetation.
It's quite a large yard.
Right.
So there would be additional opportunity to mitigate. That would place some of that burden on the applicant who has built out the.
Yeah, I understand
gazebo.
your point.
Okay.
I think the neighbor at
That was my
160
memory, and I just thought I would test my
Yeah,
memory.
the neighbor at 163 might want to take on vegetation for privacy purposes to be sure that she can maintain it, make sure it thrives. It develops into the size and shape that gives her the most benefit. I mean, if she relies on my clients and their landscape maintenance, you can't be completely assured of what the results might be. That's, just a point to be made. But I think the vegetation does provide a good separation visually. We're aware of the letter that the neighbor wrote about a month ago, and don't agree with the basic elements that she proposes and the change to the envelope that she thought might be acceptable. It's not something that we wanted to pursue at all. We're really wanting to stay with our original proposal and have that approved with your consideration tonight. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
that's,
Anything else in the way
I
of
don't
a
have anything else to
presentation?
say
Any
unless you have any
questions?
questions.
Yeah,
Commissioner Woodward,
yes,
yes,
thank you.
please.
So apologize, I missed last meeting, I was out of town, so I didn't get all of the color, although I did read through the minutes.
Sure.
And had at least a chance to go to the property and see it from one point of view. So, but just question for you, if I missed this, what was the process? I know the gazebo had been there, had been approved, it had been there for a long time. What was the process of then going from the gazebo to the exercise studio and starting the build on that process without getting permits or coming back or getting any sort of, was it just a conceptual, it's okay to do that type construct, or?
I wasn't around when all that was going on. Clearly, it was a decision that my clients made and thought it was harmless and on a part of the property that was private enough that it wouldn't be of any consequence to anybody. So they really didn't have any knowledge that this whole process was required.
Gotcha.
That's the honest truth.
And you weren't
And I-
advising them at that point in time?
No, I only came on board after it had been improved to the point you saw it today.
And I think the property owner had some additions.
Oh, sure.
To that, yeah. Yep.
You need to go to the mic?
Yes,
Because I
and-
need everything on the record, I'm sorry.
Go to the mic, and
It
if
doesn't,
you could,
believe it or not, it doesn't catch.
and if you could introduce yourself for the record.
So I'm Sharon. I'm the owner of 165 Avenida Miraflores. So what led for us to close this gazebo was when we bought the property. I don't know if you know this, it's so windy over there. And when we saw this gazebo, I said, we cannot even enjoy this gazebo because it really, most of the year, when we bought it, windy, we cannot even see there. And so we said, we tried to close it in different ways, put some things that flew away. So then we said, hey, let's try to close it more. We didn't even think about a permit, seriously. And so we said, let's close it a little bit. We put sliding doors. Everything is like window. It's not even walls. Most of it, it's sliding doors. And that's it. That's what came for this. And it's not a living unit. It's not supposed to be a living unit. There's nothing there but equipment. That's it. We go there maybe like 4 or 5 times a week for 30 minutes, 1 hour tops. That's it. That's the main purpose of this unit.
And was the plan to finish it to look like the house? I know that's the plan now, but was the plan then?
Of course, this is the plan, but we got this stop order,
You gotta stop working.
and then we had to stop doing anything. So it stopped, and this is what you see. This is the point that it would stop.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Just
you.
wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
thank you. Any other questions?
Nope.
I don't have anything else to add unless you have any other questions.
No, I don't. I thank you for entertaining my questions in the middle of your presentation.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
It just was helpful to have the imagery up there while I was asking the questions. Okay, so I would like to open, thank you very much. I'll give you a chance to sit down, and then I'll open this up for public comment. And I see the neighbor in the audience, so I'm assuming you'd like to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. And you'll have 3 minutes, and I'll start timing you, and I'll give you that. Give me 1 moment to update
okay.
my timer. Okay.
Wait, we're putting up her presentation for
sorry.
1 second.
Yes, don't want to take away your time for that.
My name is Firuze Hariri. I'm the owner of 163 Avenida Miraflores. I am sure you all have seen my letter, last letter, regarding this proposal that they have, my neighbor has. which I'm opposing. And, well, I'll take it back. I'm not opposing it. I would like them to consider revising it or do something to ensure our privacy. Looking right into our windows in our bedroom from their gazebo that they have enclosed, and they're going to be using it as a room, however, whatever they say, fine, they'll be there 30 minutes or 50 minutes, that is not the question. The question is that they are going to be using it as a room. If they're using that as a room, they will be looking right into our bedroom. You could see our beds from every single room. We have 3 bedrooms facing that gazebo. This is not a view issue only, it's a privacy issue. And the noise factor, when they talk over there, we hear them clearly. And I'm sure when we talk, they probably will hear us clearly too, because the noise really travels up. But so all I'm asking my neighbor to do is to somehow provide some privacy for us. Maybe by, I proposed actually to move their line that they have requested, the envelope further up after the gazebo, as you could see to the left-hand side on that corner. I think it's pretty small. Can you make it larger? Is it possible? Thank you. Thank you. You see the line on the blue that I actually draw? Mm-hmm. It will even give them more space to use and with a better view if they move it up that way, rather than the line that they were proposing. And or plant some tall trees in their own property to cover or to block that part of the gazebo that we are looking right into, or they're looking right into our bedrooms.
My timer just went off. I'll give you a few seconds to sort of
few
wrap
more
up.
seconds.
A couple more points.
I heard that Mr. Hickman had requested that we should do the planting, but if you notice, you were there, I think, Eric, you noticed that there is a huge drop from our property to that gazebo area. So therefore, no matter what type of trees we put over there in our yard, it's not going to be covering it. They have to do it within 5 feet away from the gazebo area in order to give us privacy. It's not a view issue only, it's mainly privacy. That's where we are.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Would the applicant like to speak for a few minutes? You have 5 minutes to sort of a rebuttal period.
So,
Okay.
I can start? Okay. So regarding the privacy issue, this is an issue that we're all facing. Our neighbor from 167, for that matter, he can see inside my bedroom. So what I did, I put blinds. And when I don't want him to look, I just close them. And they are really close to our house. I cannot tell them, move the house. You're inside my bedroom, right? So this unit is fairly so distant from her house. We really don't want to look in anybody else's house, okay? We just want to enjoy this time there in this unit, go back home, that's it. From my kitchen, I can see inside her bedroom. I can tell you the sheets, color, and everything. So you want me to move my kitchen, the deck? I don't understand that. It's a privacy issue? Okay, so I will move to a ranch outside the state. I don't know. That's what I think. I don't think that the privacy issue, that's the main issue here. Okay? We are higher than her house, we can see everything. Okay? And I don't think that I should block my view in front of the windows that facing the water because it's the privacy issue. It's 110 feet, something like that, from her house. That's more than like it should be, I think.
Thank you.
Can I just add one quick?
Sure, yes, yeah.
I think if it really is a privacy issue, I think the design review board is going to tackle this in real detail, and it will be remedied then. My only, recommendation about who plants what was so that she could make sure that the plantings were healthy and thriving and doing what she wants them to do. And as far as the terrain goes, there's actually a ravine between the two properties along the property line. So it drops off from both properties, down from hers and down from my clients. So there's no simple solution. Window coverings are a good one, but that's really all I had to say. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, I'll close the public hearing. There's no opportunity to come back in after the rebuttal. But I do think we understand between the two meetings and the letters, sort of the issues and concerns, and having visited the property as well. So I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commissioners for comment. Commissioner DeFever and Commissioner Amir and I had a chance to talk about this quite extensively at the last meeting. So I'd like to start with you, Commissioner Woodward, if that's okay, not to put you on the spot, to get your perspective. And you did just recently visit, which is, I think it's so important for the commissioners to visit properties.
Yeah, no, happy to, and I'm appreciative of all of the great note-taking in the minutes, so I actually had some color as to who was thinking about what. Look, I think this is a very unfortunate situation because in my opinion, and it's just an opinion, I think a lot of this was brought about because the applicant did construction without getting permits and without effectively having the neighbors notified, because when you do construction that could impact a neighbor, everyone gets notified, they get a chance as a public hearing, and there's a reason why these things exist. And so then, of course, it probably got exacerbated over the period of time, whatever, it seems like it's maybe been a couple of years, with a structure that was less than appealing to any party, right? An eyesore, I think, was the word choice used by the architect. And so then I'm sure that just sort of, caused additional issues around it. It is unfortunate because it seems like as an open-air gazebo structure, it was fairly inconsequential, and so, potentially moving it, finding a new place, if you're going to build something out, could have been addressed beforehand. Now that there's been money spent in development time and effort, it's just more challenging. At the end of the day, I don't think that that's necessarily our purview. It's just my perspective that had this been handled through normal channels, that we probably wouldn't be here tonight having this discussion. So, I am really interested, of course, in getting the legal perspective on, how we look to interpret this. But I do recognize that with all of the new kind of recently passed state laws, there's a lot of ways that you could effectively get around this. You could split the lot, you could build an ADU, you have all sorts of abilities that they could put something much more extensive there if they ultimately wanted. So I agree, I did have a chance to go to 163 and see the view from that perspective. And I know we keep talking about 110 feet to I think you had made the comment, it felt much closer. It definitely felt like, and because it's on the same level, it's not above the level, I can understand absolutely the privacy impact. I also think it's very challenging, like the planting of it, because the ravine is incredibly steep on both sides. And I know from experience at design review, you can't force a neighbor to plant stuff on their property to protect your privacy. Like the design review won't do that. They won't have that purview to do that. So, could they pay to do it? Again, design review, situation. So I guess I just sort of circle back to, and I appreciate the staff report and understanding what the staff report's perspective was. I'd love to hear more from my fellow commissioners on your perspective and any changes from the last meeting, because you had asked for more specific feedback and color, and I think some of that was brought, although it feels like a number of it was punted to DRB. So if I may, shared my perspective, but would love to hear your
thank you.
thoughts.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. Really appreciate that insight into the design review process. That actually raises a question for me, because one of the things we're supposed to take into consideration with regard to precise development plans, that is in the staff memo, is landscaping, which I had understood to mean landscaping by the applicant. This not so much to protect, this just goes back to the precise development plan principles of protecting the overall kind of feel. And in this particular precise development, there is a lot of emphasis on preserving open space corridors, and it's supposed to have a different feel from perhaps other communities. So I have no idea. I don't think we have to get into that level of detail tonight, but it just it's an interesting. It's otherwise I don't know what to do with that principle if it's not relevant to us in any way.
So in general, we would look to that in the design review phase. And I think, more I listen to this project, I think the landscaping piece is a design review piece.
I understand that, so that's not my
yeah.
question. So I completely understand that. I understand that we're allowed to consider these principles, because this is specifically
Correct.
directed to the Planning Commission under the Tiburon Municipal Code.
Right.
But I heard Commissioner Woodward say, well, that's not, the design review couldn't actually ask the applicant to plant landscaping to protect another person's privacy. So I was just wondering, I'm not sure how we're supposed to,
Sorry,
if we had made, if there was commentary in the record that the Planning Commission thinks the Design Review Board should consider landscaping by the applicant, that's the kind of thing I'm wondering about.
And if I could just make a clarification on mine, they couldn't force you to plant it on the neighbor's property.
Right.
Okay.
So you can do it, of course, they could on the applicant's
Okay,
property
okay, good.
themselves.
Very helpful.
Not on-
Okay, understood. Sorry about that misunderstanding then on my part. Okay, well, that answers the question. Thank you. Well, I'll just start, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
just give my perspective.
Okay.
That was such a really, I think, an important insight by Commissioner Woodward, which is sort of the way we got here, I think, is what people are struggling with, and I've been struggling with. And I don't, to reiterate what I said at the last meeting, I don't think anyone acted in bad faith. I really don't. And I hope this doesn't become more of a, I hope, just for the sake of the neighbors, that, you can hold on to that. I think it just, but I think as a commission, we don't want to necessarily encourage, this type of activity where people are doing things and then they're sort of rewarded for doing something without getting the proper permits. And so we did want to look at this more carefully because of the context and not set bad precedent. And it's clear that the secondary building, all of it's kind of designed around this new structure. Having said that, so what I've done is sort of step back and say, if this were just someone coming to me, an applicant coming to me, taking sort of away the gazebo, the sort of specific situation, just saying, I want to have this secondary building envelope and here's where I'd like to position it. I'm looking at it from that perspective. And so I'm looking at more broadly the community, the precise development plan, those goals. Very helpful in the staff memorandum to have the other revisions and what other people in the community have done. That's precisely the kind of information we wanted to get to better understand what else has happened in this community, because the precise development plan really does say, here in this area, we want open spaces, we want primary views, we want view corridors, we want all of that to be protected. And I do think that's very relevant to whatever happens at design review. So stepping back and looking at it, I think, under normal circumstances, given the distances from the house and the sizes of these lots, And the primary view is really oriented towards the bay, towards the headlands, I believe, outward in the other direction of this home. Given that, this was a helpful composite, because you see this view corridor, it's a large view corridor. And the gazebo, it's not ideal, but there is more to this view corridor. And so I do think in this instance, given the positioning and the kind of overall context, I would be inclined to approve this request, sort of taking out the unfortunate circumstances, which were not intended, but has led to this feeling that we have to really think about this a little more carefully. So for that reason, and helpful to, I do think, again, design review will have an opportunity to look at this more closely and look at some specific impacts and recommendations to mitigate impacts. And I would encourage them to do that. We want happy neighbors and happy neighborhoods and happy communities. And I think it's really important to work together to provide for that. That's why we're all here, and that's why we like this community, because generally we do all operate that. Many of us operate that way. So those are sort of my comments. I really appreciated the work that staff did to look at what other property owners have done, have requested, and to put in some specific guidelines and clarity within the resolution. And I really think all of these are very good points that I can agree with. Commissioner Ramirez.
Great, thank you. I think it's my water bottle, actually. I think it's metal on there.
Radioactive.
So first of all, I appreciate the staff coming back here with a really great work here and kind of expanding to kind of our request back from March 8th. I mean, I think this elaborated a lot of issues that popped up back then. The way I see it is that our job here on the planning side is really more to look at the overall envelope and less on the design itself of how this place is going to look if we approve it or not, because there's really a role here of DRB, and I'm still tending to think that many of these issues can be addressed by DRB. The change that's proposed by the neighbor at 163 on changing the envelope, I don't necessarily think that the blue line there really changes the issue of place. I don't know if it makes it better necessarily. And at the end of the day, one of the things that to take in consideration is, look, if this doesn't get approved, the applicant could come back a year from now, whatever, with a proposal of an ADU, and probably get it approved a lot easier, and it could have actually a much worse impact on the neighbor of 163. I mean, it's just the unfortunate situation of the new laws in California. Not that I'm proposing or that's something that's going to happen, but that is something to think about. That said, I do think that privacy is an issue, and it's true. The applicant said, privacy of 167 sees into 165 and 165 into 163. But this really is more, there's an issue here of kind of a new construction, and therefore privacy should be taken into consideration. It's not like grandfathered in just because, I'm a higher elevation and therefore I see into someone's bedroom. There is a privacy related situation that needs to be addressed. So I do think that given the distance here that you have, there is enough room, I think, on the property of 165 to create enough foliage that could be maybe 5, 6, 7 feet away from the gazebo. Yes, it might not be ideal for the 165 in terms of the view, but will absolutely help the privacy for 163. I don't think it's a reasonable request to ask 163 to plant anything. I don't think that that should be an anticipation. The cost should be falling on 165, and there's enough room in the property of 165 to actually do so. But those issues will be addressed in Design Review Board. And I truly believe, as fellow Commissioner Woodward mentioned, there are many instances where the Design Review Board will require putting certain number of trees, sizes of trees, maturity of trees, other things to help privacy. And given that the distance here that we have, so many feet here, I think that could be achieved. So I'm tending to approve what the applicant is requesting, despite the fact that I'm also not wild about grandfathering in a situation where we're encouraging behavior that shouldn't have happened. And again, I don't think that anybody did this purposely. We don't want this as a precedent. I said that in last meeting. I'm repeating it now. I think my fellow commissioners have mentioned it as well. But I also think it's somewhat unreasonable also to ask the applicant to move the gazebo to somewhere else. I don't think that necessarily solve the problem. So that's my comments.
Great, so it sounds like we have consensus, I would say, on the commission to move forward with sort of recommending conditional approval. And in that case, and there's been some helpful commentary that hopefully Design Review will take into consideration when they're reading the minutes. So on that, given that, then I will, if I may, I'll move to adopt the draft resolution put together by staff, Exhibit 1, as revised, recommending conditional approval of the amendment to the town council. Or actually, that is my...
You need a CEQA too.
And there's a CEQA exemption as well in this case. And that exemption is, looking for my memo, pursuant to, where there's a minor alteration in land use, so pursuant to section 15305 of the CEQA guidelines. So that is the motion on the table. If I may get a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the motion carries, and that concludes our meeting, so I will adjourn the meeting.